Hi, this is Tom McElroy at Wild Survival. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a quick and easy primitive survival canteen. Okay, the first thing to know in order to make this canteen is that bark peels off of trees really good, starting about mid-spring, early summer. As you get into fall and definitely winter, bark tends to really cling to a tree, and it's almost impossible to get it off. Unfortunately, that means that making this canteen in a survival situation in the middle of winter is going to be very difficult. All right, next step is you're most likely gonna have to take down the tree that you've selected. I'm gonna use this Agawa folding saw. This thing comes with me everywhere. I absolutely love it because it packs up into almost nothing and makes a really, really nice saw. My favorite thing about this compared to other saws is the second this blade gets dull, throw it away, replace it with another $2 blade, and it's basically brand new. Now, if you're in survival and you only have a knife, you don't need to take down the tree. You can just score the bark on the outside of the standing tree and peel it off that way. If you don't take off more than 1/3 of the circumference of the bark, that tree will continue to live. Okay, so I've got a really nice clean piece here with very minimal branches, knots, anything like that in it, so I can get a clean piece of bark off that's not gonna have any leaks. Next step is just to pull out my machete or some flat blade. A regular old knife would work fine. And I'm gonna draw a straight line. I'm gonna cut a straight line going from one end to the other, and that's gonna be where I start to eventually peel the bark off. So I just need to get through the bark. I don't need to really get deep into the wood. So I'm just gonna smack it with a mallet. Okay, now what I'm gonna do is use my machete, knife, a wooden wedge, whatever you've created, to sneak under the bark and just peel it up. You wanna make sure not to cut the bark, but basically just separating the bark from the log. Okay, so I've peeled a few inches in from both sides and they actually have met at the top. Once I can touch my fingers at the top, to speed things up a little bit, I can just touch my fingers and slide them down the rest of the bark very, very slowly, and then it just pops right off. So hopefully I get a nice clean piece out of that. There we go. Okay, so once I've got a nice clean piece of bark peeled off, what I can do is kind of cut it to length so that the length is maybe twice as much as the width, just so it makes a nice triangle pattern. I'm gonna find the center, and using my fingers, I'm gonna support it and just gently fold this thing in half. Now, if I stopped at the top, I basically have a basket. But what I'm gonna do is keep curling that top in until it's a circle about 1.5 inches in diameter. Keep curling it in, and you'll see you'll get this triangular shape. Kind of come back in here and tuck the corners in as nice as you can. Now, the only place for water to leak out is obviously right at the seams where I've joined it here. What I can do is mix up a batch of pitch glue, and I'm gonna glue these seams tight, and it's gonna make a waterproof canteen. Okay, my next step is to cut a piece of this elderberry. What I want to do is have a hollow piece of wood at the top of my canteen so that I can tie it down and reinforce and keep the bark from splitting at the top. Elderberry tends to grow hollow, so it's saving me the work of having to bore out a piece of wood on my own. If you're at home doing this, a very easy thing to do is just use a piece of bamboo. Okay, at this point, everything's pretty much ready to go. My bark has been folded in. It's not glued or anything yet, but I've kind of kept curling it in until it's about 1 inch diameter at the top, maybe 1.5 inches. I've got that piece of elderberry that I've burrowed out, and that's gonna insert into the top of this piece. And I'm gonna be able to lash it down. I'm either gonna lash it down with the stinging nettle that I collected right here. And this is gonna be great. I can break this and pull out some really nice long fibers that are super strong, or probably what'll be easier is using some cedar bark that I collected. And this is very fibrous. I don't even really need to make rope out of this. I can just kind of take it as is and wrap the top of this together before gluing it shut. Now the glue is gonna be all the pine sap I've collected. I've got it on a rock here that I'm gonna heat this rock up so that this just kind of simmers on there and slowly cooks. You might be thinking, what happens with the pine sap when it gets hot? You pick up your canteen, your hands are gonna get sticky every time. To keep that from happening, what you do is mix it about 40% ground up black charcoal mixed with that pine sap. That raises the melting temperature of that pine sap. We call it pitch at that point. And that way, when you're holding it with your hand or it's a really hot day, that sap won't remelt and stick to your hands. So that's gonna be my glue. This should come together pretty quick at this point. All right, so what I'm doing now is just taking this liquid sap and just painting just underneath the seams of the bark. maybe going in about 1/4 inch. I'm going to also paint just on the outside with that so that you can see that glue on the outside of the seam. Make sure everything's sealed up, but I do like to have just enough on the inside so that I know there's not going to be any leaks. Next step I'm going to do is I've heated up the sap around the top piece. I'm going to jam that in with a whole bunch of sap. Make sure that's really nice and waterproof. If you're going to get leaks, generally it's either in the corners or in the top here. I'm going to pull all that tight. And now what I want to do is I'm going to take the cordage that I have or the fibers that I have, and I'm going to bind the top here, holding this together as tight as possible. So once I've got that done, now all I need to do is sap around this entire part here, make sure everything's held down really well. One great tip is if you heat up a rock, you can just hold it against your seam and make it a lot smoother, make it almost look like glass. Sometimes I'll even use a butter knife against the stove and just touch it up, and it'll melt that sap right into the seam. All right, there you have it, pine bark canteen. This thing's full of water. I've got absolutely no leaks. Great pine flavored water. I've had one of these in the past that lasted at least a year. It was just my daily water bottle. So this is something that's very doable in survival. Even if you have a knife, probably take about 3 hours. An incredible tool to have. So if you like this video, please subscribe, please like, go back and watch my other videos, share them with your friends. The more likes I get, the more I can keep putting stuff out. Thank you for watching.